If someone asked you what you'd trade to be seen, really seen, what would you say? Pattern interrupt. Some people spend a lifetime hiding the parts they think would scare the world away. Some people are given no choice. Cut from a child reading by a guttering lamp to a father's hand pressing coins into another man's palm. There's a village at the edge of the marsh where the reed smoke tastes like the past. People there know hunger enough to call it a constant friend. They know the king's taxman the way they know storm tides, inevitable, loud, and costly. Anya grew up with ink under her nails and stories in her mouth. Her mother dried fish by the road and braided nets when the light was low. Anya learned to take the small, frayed moments of life and stitch them into something that didn't hurt so much to hold. The villagers laughed at her for calling herself the ink weaver. They also came to her when a child needed a lullaby or an old man needed Prue. He mattered. Stories, she thought, were the only things that didn't rot. Winter comes every year. This winter, the king's men come with ledger and torch. They don't want oysters or woven reed. They want coin and names. The tax ledger is a cold animal with more teeth than mercy. That night, under a lamplit sky, Anya's father goes to the market and returns with hands that do not look like his own. He stands in the square and listens to the taxman read the sum. When the men demand flesh for debt, he speaks the sentence that will turn the road into a border. Take my eldest, let them have her. We will be spared. People don't say it out loud very often, the moment a family bargains what they love, like an inventory line. But it is what the village needs, survival over shame. Anya's mother doesn't scream. She packs a bundle, like she's tucking a child into the bed she cannot afford. Anya watches the reed smoke swallow the horizon and realizes there is no argument left that will matter to the men with ledgers. Close-up of a single coin dropping into the taxman's palm, cut to Anya's face as rain begins. Anya rides to the capital with a sack of salt and a caged goose. The cart jolts, and her knees remember the motion of the river. Every mile takes her farther from a place where her stories simply warmed people's hands. The capital is marble, banners, and careful smiles. The air smells of citrus and expensive wax. The difference between her village and the capital is not size, it's attention. Here, everything remembers to be polished. They don't bring her through the front gates. She is led through a servant's entrance, past kitchens and boots, and the clacking teeth of the castle laundry. A woman with ledger-like hands receives her, measures her shadow against a rule, and gives her instructions like recipes. Scrub, cook, read when asked. The gown they give her for the first dinner slides like water and pinches like a promise. The lord, whose quarters are set aside for her, is spoken of like weather, an inevitability people try to predict and fail. Lord Rowan, the Gilded Lord, is the rumor-made person. He receives guests at dusk, he vanishes by dawn. People say he is a man who sleeps two sleeps, one for the daylight hours and one for the dark. Some whisper that his nighttime shape is monstrous. Others only say his name in the same soft tone that we use when mentioning something fragile and dangerous. When Anya stands outside the oak door of his suite, a hush presses at her throat. The guard's voice, low and professional, offers the very first instruction she learns in the castle. You will do as you are told. On the first night, she told a story that almost cost her life and saved it. Anya meets the guest. The creature she expected is not what she finds. It is larger than polite conversation allows, and smaller than the worst rumors would make it. It smells of iron and old rain. Its presence rearranges the space around it, like a stone sinking into a pond. When he speaks, his voice is not a roar, but a low bell. He is careful, curious, excluding nothing he hears. She tells him a fisherman's tale. A man who traded the rhythm of his boat for the music of his child's voice and leaves it unfinished. Unfinished stories catch on people like hooks catch coats. The creature leans in. Flash to the charred remnants of a child's drawing. Cut to Anya's fingers tapping an old memory. He asks questions that make Anya realize he is not cruel. He is frightened. He listens like someone learning a language late in life. She leaves the room at dawn, with the door closing softly behind her, and the most dangerous thought she's had in months. Did I give him a wound, or touch the place where a wound could be soothed? Days in the castle are a treadmill of tasks. Laundry, sweeping, the kind of work that arranges your posture into submission. Nights are where the bargain lives. Rowan comes to the chamber in a way that suggests ceremony. The two of them trade things that are not coins. She trades stories. He trades secrets. Slowly, a rhythm forms. He gives her a map of hidden runes and the name of a maid who vanished. She gives him tales that carry small lights into the dark. He is both court and
That
creature.
was the last time they thought him
The
alive.
daylight version, so precise, so practiced,
But I
appears
know
in
where he
public
went.
rooms
I
and
know
on
what
stone
took him.
steps. The night version arrives with the hush of a storm. Yet neither. Each question becomes a promise she is not sure how to keep. Montage. Fingers tracing maps. Anya reading aloud by candlelight. A key turning in the dark without a lock. Everything he asked was, in the end, a single small question. One night he gives her a riddle. I am kept by those who cannot hold me, broken by mouths that cannot speak me, and carried by hands that never touch me. What am I? He says the answer matters. This riddle is their compass. She can't shake it. It sits like an egg inside her, a small, heavy secret. The riddle is repeated across the nights. It appears written in dust on a windowsill, whispered into a sleeping child's hair, carved into the underside of a tray in the kitchens. It becomes a heartbeat, the small drum that sets the pace of their evenings. Quick cut to the riddle, written in frost on a window. Then to the ink-stained page of Anya's notebook. Outside their room, the castle works like a clock of ambitions. Malik, a counselor with a tongue like a filing knife, watches quiet things and makes them loud. He sees Anya's nightly absences. He smells opportunity. He begins the slow art of suggestion. A woman who sees too much is a threat. A woman who knows names and hidden rooms can leak power. Malik values practical threats more than ghosts. He folds rumor and ambition together like a map. She keeps her counsel, but she watches. Meanwhile, Anya and Rowan deepen their strange friendship. He is strange because he is earnest. He asks for stories not to be entertained, but to understand what language people use for pain. Anya gives them because she wants to believe the man behind the gilding is real. Close-up of Malik's hand smoothing his cloak. Cut to Sarah watching from the kitchen doorway. After an argument about endings, an argument where Rowan uses words like currency and Anya talks about promises, he pulls her behind a heavy tapestry and into a room breathing with paper. The library is private and narrow, a spiral of shelves unmarked by the world. Dust motes float like snow in the lamplight. Rowan tells her, in the kind of voice that drops its armor, about the curse. It is not melodramatic, not an origin story full of theatrics. It is practical and cruel. A woman wronged generations ago made a vow that stuck like resin to the family line. At sunset, his shape changes to something the court would call monstrous. It is not voluntary. It is an inheritance of pain. His confession is not the thing that softens her. It is the way he says he has tried to live anyway. There are regrets in his words, and there is a man who has defended himself from the world by keeping secrets. He touches a page and says, "If I am loved for the part I hide, I do not have to hide it." Anya tells him a line she wrote, something she'd kept because it felt unshareable. Some promises live in silence because they are too holy to be shouted. He presses his forehead to the page and for a moment looks like a frightened boy. Slow montage of hands over books, a cameo dropped into a box, the key glinting. Malik's whispers become architecture. A councilman asks questions. The rumor coil tightens. A woman in the night rooms, a lord with a hidden life. Malik, who has always measured people by the usefulness of their secrets, pushes the idea that Anya is a spy. If the court believes the story, Malik can discredit Rowan and place himself nearer to power. Anya hears pieces. A mother in the market says, "They say the Lord keeps a monster," and the butcher's wife replies, "It's a woman who brings him tales." A child's question about monsters becomes weaponized gossip. Sarah watches these developments with the same tired anxiety she reserves for fires and storms. Inside, Rowan grows harder to read. He is kinder in private than in public, but the strain of keeping both shapes and balance shows. Small tremors in his hand, a swallow that sounds like a man trying not to drown. Anya begins to understand how dangerous it is when private things are exposed to daylight. Cut to a soldier slipping a paper under Malik's cloak. Cut to a child holding a tail like a coin. Then the announcement arrives. A wedding to consolidate alliances. The court needs an unblemished face to put forward as part of a political ledge. Rowan is told to present himself as a paragon of steadiness. He is expected to be unblemished on the day, a man who reflects the kingdom's image. This is politics dressed as theater. The bride is introduced as an arrangement, not a person. People clap out of rhythm because the court is better at following consequences than feelings. Anya learns about the wedding not from the court, but from the butcher's wife in a whisper and the gossip of an anxious market. She decides to go, not to protest, not to take a stand, but to see if the man who has been honest with her at night can survive in daylight's mirror. Flash of wedding banners, the bride's silk, the picket of soldiers. The procession moves under a sky stretched thin with expectation. The bride is polished, an investment. Rowan walks as a sculpture, bright and composed. His eyes, however, do not belong to the statue. They flicker, searching for safety. Anya hides in the crowd because that is what she knows how to do. What? Then everything breaks. Men with a grievance, rebels, or opportunists, Malik's plans given a dangerous edge, strike the gathering. Chaos is a blunt instrument. It makes everybody equal for a moment. In the confusion, a thin, lethal arrow is loosed, aimed like a thought toward Rowan's back. Anya does something that is not planned. She moves. She throws herself, a small human body, between arrow and the man who taught her how to read the space behind words. The arrow is aimed to kill spectacle and silence truth. It finds her instead. Slow-motion arrow through light. Anya's hand flaring white as she pushes. The wound rearranges the rules. The world watches as the Lord they thought they knew becomes what they feared. The night form, right there in the midday of the wedding. The myth and the man collapse together. The creature defends Anya with the ferocity of someone who had been learning the language of safety and finally had the chance to use it. In that instant, everything the court feared becomes true and false at once. The night shape fights for the safety of the woman who told him stories. That action is a form of translation for the crowd. Their story of him was incomplete. For a moment, the myth is honest and messy. Sarah helps Anya off the ground. Rowan collapses, exhausted, the transition between forms bleeding into a private ruin. The wedding is over. The bride disappears into a whisper. The kingdom has seen what it had been pretending not to see. Close-up of Anya's wound. Rowan's hand pressed to his chest like someone trying to hold a secret in place. At dawn, in the ruined square, Rowan looks at Anya and asks the riddle again, quiet and raw. What is kept by those who cannot hold it? She answers, not with a clever trick, but with the thing she has been practicing to hold in her bones: a promise. He smiles, not grandly, but with an incredulous relief that makes him look almost young. He explains what the curse was trying to do. It was a law by another name, a balance enforced by cruelty. It never intended to be handsome. It intended to be a measurement. And measurements, if they are public, can be used to shame. But what breaks any old measure is the private choice. Anya's small, immediate decision to step in front of an arrow. That quiet, uncalculated bravery is what loosens the resin of the curse. The curse, it seems, was bound by the expectation of spectacle and by bargains made publicly. It had no answer for the intimate, where someone keeps a promise without an audience. The tiny key in Anya's hand, opening a carved box with a faded ribbon and a folded promise inside. The morning after the wedding is all practical rearrangement. Malik is furious because things didn't go to plan. He plots, but other forces move too. Servants who once swallowed fear and silence decide small acts of defiance. The maid who once disappeared reappears, bruised but defiant, and names things. The library doors swing open in small ways. Rowan begins to put rooms into the daylight he had kept them from. Justice is not a sudden decree. It is a set of small shifts. A soldier who used to carry off those who disappeared now answers a neighbor's knock. People who had been told to be quiet begin to speak. The library is filled with children who have never had a book in their hands. These are the increments that make a kingdom become less of a ledger and more of a human body. Sarah stands by Anya's bedside when the wound is tended. She admits quietly that she had been wrong to watch Anya so suspiciously at first. She tells Anya her sister's story, how the court once took someone and the rumor burned everything they touched. Sarah's confession is small and human. She had been protecting herself by not caring. Now she cares, and care is dangerous because it makes people responsible. Montage, library doors opening, a child holding a first book, Malik slamming a fist in a private room. Rowan heals in ways both simple and complex. His wound is tended by hands that have learned to be gentle. He learns to accept help. People are good at noticing when a man who once seemed untouchable becomes touchable. He opens doors. He names rooms and gives them functions he had never allowed before. A reading room for children, a table where a servant can eat in daylight. Change often arrives as logistics. Anya is given a small room by the new library door. She writes. She writes like someone who has been given the right to keep telling. Her pages are not only for survival now, they are to give. She keeps a small stack of stories in a cedar box and gives them to children who have never heard a story told like it mattered. Rowan comes to her with the little key he once gave her. He asks her to open the cameo she had received earlier. Inside is a faded portrait of a woman with the same eyes as his. It is his mother, whose slight, human kindness is now visible to Anya. It is the small human thing behind the legend. Close-up. Rowan handing Anya the cameo. Anya smiling with ink on her fingers. Malik cannot abide losing his arc of control. He arranges a hearing, the sort of public trial that smells like vinegar and old parchment. He tries to present Anya as a fraud and Rowan as incompetent. How can a man rule when he carries a knight shape? How can a kingdom trust a leader who must be hidden? He plays on fear, and fear is an old, effective weapon. But the hearing does not go as he predicts. People who have been small begin to say names. A maid testifies about being taken and returned. A gardener tells of how Rowan saved a child and did not demand thanks. The evidence Malik counted on, the spectacle of the curse alone, is not enough. It is not enough because truth has already been seen openly. People have watched Rowan choose to be human, not for his own glory, but because someone else mattered. Malik is disgraced quietly. Power built on whispers collapses when the people refuse to be quiet any longer. He slinks away with his pride bruised, his plans broken. The court reorganizes itself at the edges. Rowan offers Malik a chance, a small, practical redemption. And Malik chooses to leave rather than accept it. Some choices are too small for people built on larger ambitions. Malik's shoulders leaving, a page of the trial dropped like a stone. The library becomes a literal place of light. Children with ink on their fingers sprawl on rugs and devour pages. Servants are allowed to read there under the new rules Rowan sets. No restrictions beyond respect. Anya teaches, small groups, her voice patient but electric. The library is not just a symbol, but a tool. It changes how the servants think about themselves. Knowledge becomes a small form of freedom. Sarah sits at the back of one of the sessions and watches Anya teach. She smiles once, like a hard thing softened. The youngest child asks Anya how to make a story last. Anya touches the child's hand and says, "You tell it to someone who needs it more than you do." The child giggles, the simple secret of giving. Not every change is huge. Some of the most important ones are quiet. Rowan walks with Anya through the castle gardens at dusk. They do not lunge into confessions or grand promises. They speak like people discovering how to share chores. He asks her about her village. She asks him about the cameo. They talk about food, about the ridiculousness of court fashion, about who used to stack the plates in the kitchen. In these scenes, love and trust grow not like fireworks, but like roots. The riddle is still there, when it no longer paces them like a trap. He asks it sometimes and she answers. Sometimes he answers it first. They laugh. They hold hands for the first time in a way that is not theatrical. It is a small, unarranged consent. Change attracts attention. The kingdom does not fully reorder itself overnight. There are those who prefer the old calculations. The old ledger still exerts a gravity. A group of nobles see Rowan's reforms as weakness. They conspire to test his will. There are raids at the borders. A smug merchant brings bad grain intentionally. Rowan faces pressure to restore older methods. Rowan feels the strain. He confesses privately to Anya. Leadership is easier when you can hide and make decisions for the illusion of power. When you invite daylight in, you invite complaint. Anya answers him simply. Daylight shows what's there. It also shows what's wrong. The advice is plain and human. Sarah tells Anya the full truth about her sister in a small private confession. Her sister once had a child who was rumored to be different. The court used the rumor to punish a family. Sarah tells Anya the full truth about her sister in a small private confession. Her sister once had a child who was rumored to be different. The court used the rumor to punish a family. Sarah had been too tired, too frightened to stop it when it happened. The memory has lived in her like an ache. To underline the changes, Rowan invites the village to the castle for a small, low-cost festival. It is not ostentatious. It is a place setting of goodwill. People bring reeds and fish, and the castle supplies warmth and empty bowls. The villagers bring Anya gifts that are the right size for her. A wrapped stone, a child's painted shell, a reed-smoked fish. They bring thanks. The festival is human and a little clumsy. People step on each other's toes and bump wine glasses. Rowan stands in the crowd, awkwardly partaking in the disorder. It is a perfect, imperfect scene. Anya tells a story by the fire, a simple one about a cockle and a moon. And the story is received not as entertainment, but as belonging. Malik, having been dismissed quietly, plots one last move. He gathers a group of disgruntled men and tries to start trouble. But this time, the people are not a collection of ledgers. They are citizens. A few loud voices rise, but more quiet ones counter them. The gardener speaks for Rowan. The baker speaks for Anya. A soldier who once feared to speak now steps forward and refuses violence. The attempted disruption fizzles. Malik leaves the castle where he had once sat like a profiteer of silence. He walks away with his plans and his pride in tatters. That is the kind of justice the palace knows how to give now. Quiet, almost bureaucratic, but effective. Months later, Anya and Rowan sit at the library's wide window, watching the market. He turns the riddle to her once more, softer than before. She answers, not with rhetoric, but with nourishment, a promise. They speak of promises kept privately rather than pub. How those are the ones that matter. They share memories of the man who first taught Rowan to be afraid. The key that once fit no lock finds one. A small chest beneath a stair. Inside is a folding letter, yellowed with a simple line. To keep, not to show. Rowan reads it and weeps once. Not from shame, but from the relief of being human and seen. The story does not end with a single triumph. It ends with a string of small acts that, when strung together, make a place that is gentler. The library stands as a symbol of that work, yes, but more importantly, it stands as a place where small people can get bigger in ways that matter. Anya continues to tell stories. She writes a book in the quiet of dawn. Children read it in the library's low light. Rowan governs with the awkwardness of someone learning to unlearn cruelty. Sarah keeps watch, with an eye that has finally allowed softness. Malik is gone. The palace is still imperfect. But its heart beats in daylight now. Some promises are made in silence, and sometimes silence is the only place where truth begins. If this story touched you, if Anya's small bravery made you think of the quiet choices you owe someone, tell me one small promise you've kept in the comments. If you want the prequel that tells Sarah's sister's story, I've sketched it in a short exclusive. Drop a note below and I'll put it at the top of the next release.